When it comes to the Cosmere, the hype is focused around the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, but its other entries like Warbreaker deserve just as much love. Warbreaker is about a girl named Ciri who is given away in marriage in an attempt to avoid war. It follows her, her sister, and a lord, I guess you could say, of the kingdom Ciri marries into, as the nations move inevitably toward war. Despite having similar upbringings, the two sisters feel very distinct, very different. Their contrasting reactions to cultures outside their own felt so real to me. It was fun to put each sister in the other sister's position, imagining how the other would have handled the same situation. There are three different, I guess you could say, pieces to the plot, or three different point of view characters. I liked all three of them, but Lightsong was my absolute favorite. I mean, he's a god who doesn't believe in his own religion. Super intriguing. I started out really invested in Ciri's point of view, but once she figures out the mystery she's trying to solve, my interest waned. Side characters were all wonderful. Before Warbreaker, I'd had several books in a row where I struggled to see the side characters, so the fact that I could see them clearly, like personality and the way they looked, they were all interesting and compelling, really just made the story for me. For those of you who have already read Warbreaker, who is your favorite character? Let me know down in the comments, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button. Thinking of the setting physically, I didn't care much either way about the setting. I don't know, the specific city and location the story took place didn't really pull me in. I think I wanted the characters to have more of a deeper personal connection with the setting, and that would have helped me connect with it. The culture side of the setting was really interesting. I enjoyed learning about the politics of the Pantheon. I especially liked the exploration of the way groups of people change after migrating. Because the plot follows three different main POV characters, it feels similar to Elantris in a lot of ways. If you haven't read Elantris, I highly recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link to my videos about it in the description below. The similarities between the two plots are not glaringly obvious. I really only noticed them once I started making this video and like really piecing things together. The way the three POV characters interacted in Warbreaker is very different from Elantris, and as you're reading it, you're not sitting there thinking, oh, this is like Elantris, oh, this is like Elantris. You're just enjoying the story. It's a fun read. The plot is generally fast-paced and intriguing, and the end is very satisfying. Before picking up Warbreaker, I had the impression that it was a romance fantasy. I'd have to say, while it definitely has romance in it, I wouldn't really categorize it as a romance. I would categorize the first Mistborn and Elantris as romances before I'd categorize Warbreaker as a romance. And I'm not sure I would categorize either one of them as romances either. In my video about Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, see description, I mentioned that Sanderson's romances often lack a spark for me. And finally I've pinned down why. It's conflict, tension, and then how it's resolved. The conflict in Warbreaker is there for both major romances. However, it's resolved in very unromantic, tension-free ways. I want to compare this to My Fair Lady. My Fair Lady is about a professor who believes that he can make anyone fit into high society by teaching them how to talk and dress, etc. So he takes Audrey Hepburn's character and turns her into a high society woman. And when he's successful and nobody notices that she is not high society, he just kind of tosses her away as a successful experiment. Woohoo, I did it! And she gets pissed and throws a fit. Her anger ends up bringing them closer together and turning what was a more colleague type of relationship into a romance. Now, imagine she hadn't thrown a fit and they just kind of fell in love. The tension and the conflict isn't there. So the romance just isn't as satisfying and just doesn't have that same kind of spark. The romances in Warbreaker leave a similar taste in my mouth. The magic in Warbreaker was very intriguing. I enjoyed it more than Stormlight's superhero vibe magic system. I think Mistborn spoiled me though. Every time I read a Sanderson novel, I expect to understand the magic system as thoroughly as I did the original Mistborn trilogy magic. And I haven't had that experience with really any Cosmere novels since Mistborn Era 1. While that's a bit of a bummer, it's also not make or break for me. To be clear, the magic is still explained enough to understand on a basic level what the different characters can do and enough to understand the story. Now, I'm the kind of reader who likes a good, well-explained magic system, but I also want some more Narnia-like wonder in my fantasy novels, and Warbreaker had just enough wonder. And I finally had a specific sword in the Stormlight Archive explained to me. I appreciated the explanation a lot. That sword has felt off in Stormlight Archive and frankly insanely annoying. Now that I have a bit of an explanation, I'm interested to see if I enjoy its inclusion more in Stormlight. But I'm still annoyed about it because it really feels like there should be a little bit more effort to make the sword make sense in Stormlight without reading Warbreaker, even if it is just pointing out that the sword is otherworldly and doesn't fit in. Anyway, sword rant over. Now that I've caught up with the Cosmere, I'm throwing around future video ideas to do some deep dives into Cosmere lore. My main idea is to do something surrounding shards. Let me know what deep dives you're interested in and subscribe so you don't miss those. And if you love the Cosmere as much as I do, check out my other Cosmere videos by clicking the card.